Welcome back to episode 12 of the podcast. In today's episode, we talk about spiritual woo-woo-ness, habit stacking,
our darling doesbands, who, by the way, we will definitely be getting on the show, and quotes that have changed our life forever.
Enjoy the show.
Can we just discuss how incredible this sunshine and how the weather impacts our mindset? It's actually quite outstanding how much I feel lighter, I feel happier, I feel brighter. I was
going to say your energy has been lifted.
I would say the same about you too.
I know.
I think this morning we have been in the best place. We've been in a good week.
Yesterday we weren't in such a great frame of mind.
We were quite dull yesterday. This morning it's bright, it's sunny, and we feel stunning for it.
So stunning. I put Lenny in shorts for school. Are yours in summer uniform?
Yes, they have been
nursery
since when did they go back to school? It was so cold, bless them, and they had to go back in short shirts and little shorts.
So cute. Talking of school, I had my 20-year school reunion on the weekend.
I love that you went.
I mentioned it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I went, and it was 10-year, 20-year, 30-year, 40-year. So really like quite a vast, group of ladies. I went to a girls' school, North London, and it's my best memories. I look back at school so fondly.
Sarah was definitely that girl. She loved school.
I love school.
She loved homework.
Yeah.
She just loved the whole thing.
I like to be told what to do and do it well. And then I feel really happy about life. And going back, just because it was such a happy memories and, my best friends from when I was 7 years old, we were there, most of us, going where we used to play hopscotch and where we used to play it and tag and seeing the lunch canteen.
So nostalgic.
It was so nostalgic, and obviously reconnecting with other people that, maybe you hadn't seen in like 20 odd years. It was just a really lovely couple of hours. And it's so random and something so that you're only going to do once, well, maybe for my 30 years. It was just a really lovely day.
Were the teachers there?
The teachers weren't there. I mean, there was a lot of new male teachers. And when I was there, not that that's bad, when I was there, it was all women teachers, and everyone that kind of walked us around was male, which I found quite strange. But it was just a lovely afternoon, and I can't believe I left school 20 years ago.
It suddenly makes us feel really ancient, doesn't it?
Although I did make you younger in a Q&A this week on Instagram.
You actually, for a moment...
Both of us don't know your age. How old are you?
I am 35.
She's 35.
But I did have to double check on my Instagram post from December, just to triple check, because Sarah did the Q&A, often does do the Q&A, and I'm reading it as a follower on the toilet, and I think, 34? Am I 34? I thought, oh, wow, I'm still young. I've still got years.
And funny enough, some of your girls messaged me being like, she wishes, or P, why are you lying? And I messaged them back being like, no, it's
quite disturbing for anyone that thinks that I was doing the Q&A and just decided to knock off a year. But this weekend I had... Do you know what? Sometimes where you just need to shift your mindset on something. So I'm moving out of our house. We're moving into our new house at the end of the month. And it's been something that was pretty... kind of came about quite out of the blue.
Yeah.
I feel like when someone wants to move house, or you have to move house, it's like it's a definite decision. You think just right, let's put our house on the market, let's see what's on offer, let's go view houses. That didn't happen for us, which I guess in a way was better. It kind of gravitated towards us, and it was, as they say, meant to be.
I like that phrase.
But with that has meant that I have not perhaps accepted it or planned or organized myself. But I've got 2 weeks, not even, I've got a week and a half. I have to get myself in gear. And it was just that shift in mindset. And I think the issue that I was having, and I think this kind of can be related to so many things that just stress you out. It's thinking about it in such a big scale that then often scares you, puts you off, and then you don't even want to go near it.
You need to start small.
So I thought to myself, I just have to do not even a room at a time, like a corner or a cupboard at a time, and just not get myself, not like see it as a chore, but almost see it as like an opportunity to clear out, to cleanse, to organize myself.
You also need to take your own advice from last week's episode. Write the list of the 8 things, loz off 7 and do the 1.
I actually read a quote from the Home Edit, who I love to follow. If you guys don't follow the Home Edit, you really have to. She's so inspirational for so many reasons. But she quoted, "We need to change our mindset around organization and see it as an opportunity and not as a chore. Organization is a form of self-care." And I can so relate to it, because after I had cleared out the kids' wardrobes, I felt so good about myself, about the situation. I felt really positive. I felt like I wanted to do more. All of a sudden, like the fear of having to clear out my whole house.
Off. Yeah. You took the pressure of clearing out one drawer and all the rest of them to move house to, I'm just going to clear out one drawer to make myself feel good. So you're, like you said, it's totally shifting that mindset and attacking it with like a positive brain.
I feel like we can practice that on so many different, so many times we have lists at work, and when you just look at the list, you don't even know where to begin because it feels so gargantuous and like huge. I feel like we need to take that mindset into basically everything that we do, and then perhaps we'll get stuff done
in life.
So last week we involved you guys into our episode. We reached out and asked you to get in touch with us via DMs, emails, messages, however you wanted, to let us know kind of the episodes that you've loved, the ones that have made you laugh, cry, why you listen to it, why you love it. And we had a few that we just wanted to read out. We thought maybe we would do this every episode just to keep you guys engaged with us. We love hearing from you and we want to involve you on our podcast. So we
messages.
We love it. And also just hearing your interpretation on it is just so refreshing for us. But you go first.
I'm going to go first. So this one, hello lovelies, laughing at episode 6. I'm 34 with 2 kids and still have a teddy bear. You're my kind of girl. He's called Minty and he even comes on holiday with us. Last year, I left him in our hotel room in Greece and had to phone and pretend it was my 3-year-old daughter's so they would post it back to me. Iconic.
Did that make you feel better about life?
Do you know what? The fear of leaving, no, it happened to me. The fear of leaving I had a muzzy. And I didn't share this at the time, like one particular one, not from when I was a baby, but like my one that was like
an OG one.
And when I left Dubai a year ago, it wasn't with me. So that was when the churning of my kids' muzzies came into action, because I left it in Dubai. And that was really special to me, and that was heartbreaking. So I'm so pleased that you got Minty back, because I can only imagine what that would have been. But it really made us lull.
We also... on purpose and not reading out the names just in case.
Yes.
But obviously, if you
thanks Minty's owner.
If you would like us to name or shame, then please do, because then we will. So this message, obviously I won't name who it is, but she said, "Hi girls, I really just felt compelled to write to say thank you for your podcast. I recently returned to work after baby number 2, and I've had to take time off work due to having burnout and not being in a good place mentally. I went on a walk and always turn on your podcast as it's such an escape, but the one I listened to today was so fitting, the one about Michelle Obama. It helped me not to feel so alone, and knowing it's common and acceptable to not be able to excel at everything in my life all at the same time. And it was just everything that I needed to hear today. So thank you." Love that.
I love that. And I really love the power of listening to things or having that conversation when you need it in that moment.
Yes.
Like attracting that conversation, attracting that phrase, which we're going to discuss a bit later, that you really need to hear. And then it just makes you feel better.
Yeah, it so does.
So it's so nice to hear that feedback.
There was another message. I think you have the DM about a spiritual bucket, which actually I hadn't heard this phrase of before. Is it a common phrase?
So this lady, I think I can name her Olivia, she says, "Could you please talk to us about anything that fills your spiritual bucket and or related to your spiritual journey? All things journal, healers, energy, therapies, treatments, or really anything that helps you or has helped you staying sane and positive over the years. Your positivity and amazing solar energies really inspire me, and I love listening to your podcast."
If my mum's listening to this, she is going to be feeling so proud right now, because she would also probably think I'm not very spiritual, but perhaps...
I think so. You're very positive. I would say that this message speaks to me and my black book of woo-woo-ness that I have cultivated and tried throughout the years. And I think it's really interesting because my take on all of this stuff, and I think you're quite similar, is if you have an experience, whether it's with a psychic or a reflexologist, and we will kind of talk through them, it's an hour or an hour and a half away from your phone, from the noise, an hour to yourself just to be. And even in that moment, if you're just being in silence or getting something from someone that you'd never normally speak to or experience, that can be so incredibly powerful in itself. You know, it's so rare. If you're at home, when do you just sit and be with your thoughts? There's always something at the back of your mind. There's always something to be done. And with all these things, it's such a big form of self-care, and it's been really important to me for a really long time.
I also think the word like spiritual, it has connotations, but I think actually nowadays, because it's so accepted
and accessible
and around, it can mean so much. Even down to last night, I had a conversation with someone for an hour and a half, and in a way that was a moment. It was therapy, but
it wasn't therapy, but
we were having an amazing conversation. We were reflecting, and I stepped away from it. So I can't even, you know, when you release things, it makes you feel alive again, like reborn. Do you know what I mean? And I guess that's a spiritual feeling in itself. So you don't have to think like meditation and yoga and Reiki and all of that is, you know, you have to do all of those things or go to see psychics or whatever to be spiritual. I think sometimes just connecting with someone, releasing something, having a conversation that really connects with you, that can be a form of
spiritualness.
Yeah.
And I also think with these things, there's so much on offer. It's trial and error. Like you said, it might be a conversation. It might be listening to a manifestation YouTube video. It might be journaling. It might be kinesiology. There's so much out there. And I think it's really, like we said, accessible. And the fact that we can try these things and what works for you might not work for me and vice versa. And I know I've shared before about my kind of IVF journey, and that was a really big mental load for me at the time, and I tried so many different therapies, healers. I mean, the list was endless what I tried, and I feel like at each time the stuff that I was trying helped me in that moment.
Yes.
So my reflexologist was an ongoing thing. It was therapy at the same time. We used to speak a lot, but that was like my grounding. That was my weekly thing, the thing I look forward to. But then I would see my spiritual osteopath and have like maybe a past life experience once a month, and that gave me something different. But I don't do that anymore because that's what I needed at the time.
I was thinking that as well last night when we were just thinking about today's episode. Someone once told me, if you feel the sudden urge to want to go see a psychic, clairvoyant, whatever, it's often someone, something, an energy has a message for you. Or, as you said, you go through certain times in your life, journeys, where you crave it. You need a little bit more reassurance. And then, like, I know a couple of years, probably about 5-6 years ago, all I could think about was seeing a clairvoyant, a psychic, a spiritual healer. It was all I wanted. I obviously needed that reassurance. Whereas a couple of years later, I haven't even thought about it.
Yeah.
So you go through phases and stages of your life where you need it and then when you don't. And I think that's also what you were saying. And actually being okay with that. And the only time I can really relate to it was when I went to see, I think you probably, Sarah
Andrea
always recommends
Black Book.
Everyone to me.
If anyone wants to know, by the way, just DM me. I've got a lot of people to recommend.
And I think we should definitely, I know Sarah's made a long list of treatments and people that she's seen, so she should definitely go into it. But one that I can remember, Andrea was her name, psychic, and I was in the process of miscarrying, but it hadn't been confirmed. And I had been to a doctor, I think it was on the Monday, and there was still a heartbeat, but the likelihood of miscarrying was high, but it wasn't confirmed. And I think this was on the Wednesday. And I sat down in her room, and the first thing she said to me was, "You're having a miscarriage."
Mad.
And I, you know, when you that instant, like, I mean, and then you think, wild, how does she pick it up? Like, and I remember going home, and obviously I'm not going to go into any details, but my body, like, I needed to hear it.
Yeah.
I needed to accept it, and it needed to pass. But when you connect with someone and it gives you what you need, there is just genuinely nothing better. And some people, I think, can be quite skeptical, and that's fine as well. If it's not, I think, always think with these things, if you're not ready or accepting of it, it won't work. But I think we are very accepting.
And I think as well, you have to go with an open mind. So we might go to someone and you want to have this like sound shamanic healing, but actually all you need to do is talk about X.
Yeah.
So they, they have their guides. The overall thing with these spiritual, I'm using inverted commas, people is they have their guides, and their guides will guide them to give you what you need. And that might sound woo-woo and that might sound crazy, but essentially that's what it is. And so many times I've had, like you said, like an experience where I had a curse on my body that I could never have a baby until I got rid of this curse.
Can I ask, just based on that?
I did get pregnant after that.
Yes.
I did. In October, I saw Julia.
Just explain to everyone, because for anyone that hasn't perhaps watched past episodes, just explain.
So I had 4.5 years of IVF to get pregnant with Lenny, and I did get pregnant quite a few times, but I always miscarried really early. And there was, various things going on, but it was quite a long journey for us. And part of my journey was that I really looked outwards to support in healers and reflexologists just to help me mentally through it, because, you can vouch that I found it very, very difficult. And someone, I don't actually know.
How did you find Julia?
It was Craig.
Craig found Julia?
Craig was on holiday. No, it was Craig's business partner was on holiday with this woman, Julia. And she told me she was an acupuncturist or something bizarre. She said, you've got to go and see this woman. Went to see this woman. And I can say that Julia changed my life. And I know you've seen her, and, and I actually don't think she practices anymore.
She doesn't.
But she's a reflexologist, but with a spiritual side. So I went to her, and it all blurs into one. But essentially, her guides thought that I had a curse on my body.
In your past life?
In my past life. So we went with the guides to Africa in my past life to get rid of this curse. And she said her guides held up a baby in the air and were dancing and said, this curse has been lifted. Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah.
I haven't spoken this in a long time. And I think that was the October. And I think by the December, I was pregnant. Because it was New Year's Eve. I was... I remember very early, and I was pregnant. And listen, was it that? Was it my time? Who knows? But that was a real poignant moment for me. And I put my, if you're asking me my gut feeling, that had something to do with it.
And I guess it's however you look at it. Maybe it was your body releasing something.
And yes,
and it was how she did it.
Lots of other things. She made me, there was another, and this has only come to my mind now. She said to me, I want you to go into a room and I want you to write. I want you to write whatever comes out of your mind. Like, tell the world it might not happen, having a baby. Tell the world it's okay if it doesn't happen. Just write. And it was the most freeing. It's like free flow writing. The most freeing. And I think I wrote about 7 pages front and back, and I actually don't know what I've done with that book. But I basically put out there to the world all my fears, all my insecurities.
You let it go.
And I let it go. And I think holding, when you have a miscarriage, or you have, a lot of embryo transfers, for example, and it turns out to a no, your hopes, they're high, they're low, they're high, they're low. You put so much into each doctor's appointment. Do you want to see what you need to see? Are your levels going to be the right level to have the transfer? Are they going to have the eggs to do the egg removal? There's so much such a huge mental side of it. You don't let go of one thing before you get onto the next. And that was a really powerful thing for me, because I felt free of it. I felt free that, okay, this is what's happened to me, but it's out there. I'm not going to cling on to that negative. Clinging on and holding on to that can't be good. It isn't good for you.
I think that's what it is. And not just, I think hopefully so many people listening to this will feel it as well, because how many times, our body, our body is our everything. And how many times have you been so uptight about something physically and like mentally, and it's all connected,
all consuming.
But we don't live in a world where everything is just easy, and we don't have any hiccups, and everything is just free flowing and nothing to override. Like, life is hard, obviously so much harder for some, but we all feel our own level of tough times. And I think it's amazing if someone is open to be able to listen to people, let people guide you, to train you in a way of, you know, having these tools to be able to let go of feelings, because we know how valuable it is to be able to do that for yourself.
And I think the message that we're saying is we love this question because it felt really true to us. And we're saying we've tried different things. We constantly want to try new things, and it's really helped us. So if we can inspire people to, you know, say 3 grateful things before they go to bed so that they wake up in a positive mindset in the morning, if we can inspire them to think, you know, they've got that feeling they want to see a psychic or have some reflexology to be grounded, do it, see how you feel. Even if it's a one-off, or it becomes part of your life, it's a really positive experience.
So every week, Sarah likes to come into the office with
what are you going to say?
With a new TikTok thing that she's spotted, something trending that she wants to discuss. And this week, she has discovered habit stacking.
Habit stacking, yes.
In my way of, basically this is just doing 2 things at once.
Right. So that is how, and I love that, because what I love is that all these things are open to interpretation in our own way. You don't have to do it how Mr. Man over there says it. We can do it on our own way. But essentially, habit stacking is linking one habit to an already established one. Right? So if you always go on your morning run, why not listen to a positive podcast at the same time?
Okay, yeah.
So it's like implementing
2 positive
that
things
you're
at once.
already doing with something new, so it feels easily done, if that makes sense. But it just made me think that actually it can be such small things, and we often are already doing it. For example, we do like, I'm going to laugh because it's such a non-thing, but I actually think it's habit stacking. We like to apply cuticle oil while we're on a Zoom call.
I love that you've made that a thing. But
I've got really dry, crusty cuticles, and I never remember to do it. But when I'm on that Zoom call,
it's association.
Yes. And actually, what are those? When you're brushing your teeth in the morning, as my friend Emma Board, PT.
What does she do?
Do you
exercise?
Do 10 squats. No, but seriously, it's like you're already brushing your teeth. Or if you're emptying, stroke loading, stroke leaving things in the sink for your dishwasher, think of your 3 grateful thoughts.
Yes.
So I love that you can just add another thing onto something.
I guess
you're
it's like
doing.
that phrase, what's the phrase? Kill 2 birds in one.
Basically, yeah.
Basically that.
How much more can you fit into your time?
How
can you be 1% better?
The only thing I can think that I do whilst trying to habit stack is sometimes I'll put my teeth whitening in and put a hair mask in. It's like the 2 kind of come together.
Bougie.
And I just like maybe like once every other week think, right, let's just
I think that's
live
good.
my best life.
I saw someone on Instagram was doing their like morning Pilates, whatever, with eye masks, you know, like the gel eye masks on. I thought that's a good habit stack. But I always try, if I'm doing a walk, I'll always try and listen to a podcast because I feel like I can waste away time on my phone, or I might call my mum, who I've spoken to like 8,000 times already that day. But if you make the association, like walking, podcast.
And not only that, I think it's also being mindful of what you're doing. So, you know, sometimes, so often, like we'll just do things and we won't even think about it. Like when you just said
about drive here this morning, don't even know.
When you just said about the cuticle oil, like that's such a non-thing to do. But actually, let's be really mindful. We are putting our cuticle oil on. We're not going to have crusty cuticles, and you make it.
And so
you're
we'll
mindful about it.
Our finger pictures to the men on Instagram for £3,000 a month.
We're ready. Mine are very crusty. Actually,
mine are so crusty. Anyway, so I really like habit stacking, and I feel like it's a really positive thing to do. And
I'm going to work on it. I'm going to come up with a few more.
Yeah, and it doesn't need. It's one of those things. It doesn't need to be a big thing. It just is like just shifting that mindset. I think that's a phrase of the week. Okay, I want to talk to you about an article I read over the weekend in the Times about doesbands. Have you heard about this?
I have.
And
quite controversial, if I might say.
For some, but I think at our stage of our life, in our lives, where both parties work full time, we are in a dynamic where, I mean, now I'm talking personally, we share the load. And I will praise Craig, who says I'm only nice to him on the podcast, by the way, not IRL. So when he does come on the show, I'm not going to allow him to break that bubble. You know, he is very hands-on, and I would not be able to keep up the level of work, the travel, you know, the leaving first thing in the morning to get to a shoot without the support of Craig. And I think what works for us is that we're constantly evolving that narrative. We're constantly, okay, this week who's got what on, who's got that on, is there any you know, can you pick up the kids, can you do that? And I feel like we're in a really good flow and we really work hard at it. Want to share a story this week that actually really turned me on about Craig.
Oh, here she is, Craig. It's your lucky day.
I mentioned in passing that Edie had run out of Sudocrem without me even asking. He went to the shops.
No way.
And I came home and there was Sudocrem on the table. Is that not sexy or is that not sexy?
I am so impressed. Craigles.
Literally.
I mean, that kind of thing would not even enter Alex's mind. Never.
No, but he's very good. He's very hands-on.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm not going to I will praise Alex all day long, but let's have a moment for Craig.
Let's have a moment for
Craig.
He
deserves it.
Doing the fair share without being asked.
That's basically what a doesband is.
But I also think, listen, every dynamic is different. I'm talking about myself, but I will say that it's something that we work really hard on. And I feel like we really do share the load in lots of different ways. And I think, but it is a constant work in progress. Some weeks, as we say with everything, it feels like we've nailed this, everything's working with the kids. And then tomorrow they've got to wear green for school and no one has anything green and we've both forgotten. So, I feel like it's
constant work in progress. And I think also really important just to reiterate, every relationship and dynamic is different. Every household works differently. I think people obviously have their strengths in the relationships, others, and being really mindful and respectful of that key point. But
we're obviously talking about our experiences.
We're talking about our experiences. And in our household, very similar. Obviously, Alex and I both work full time. It has to be a joint effort. But that being said, there are definitely things that Alex kind of demands and takes over and other things that I do. So like cliche, putting the bins out, and we were just having this kind of conversation before, that's just naturally something that he does. He will leave it to like literally Jenga level of just about to explode. But that's like his thing that he controls. I wouldn't say that... See, Alex is he's good with routine, but anything outside of the routine, he finds it difficult to manage. So that's where I come in. Yeah. Whereas I'm quite good at dictating.
Here she is.
And he's good at listening.
Alex!
And that's how our dynamic works. But it's not always a success.
And listen, this is this article that says that's their interpretation of a doesband. I think our point is we're sharing how we make it work and how we might have to ask them or we might have to ask for help. Yeah. But I think now in the dynamic that we're in, it does take all parties to be involved.
I think communication is key. And Absolutely. I think this is what a successful doesband is clear communication. And that's what we lacked this week. So this week, Sarah and I had to be at a shoot at like crazy hours of the morning, which meant I would have had to leave home at 7. And usually I take the kids to school before coming to a shoot, podcast, the office. But we're all, when you're just so busy, you've got so much on. And I just assumed that it would be fine for Alex to take the kids to school on Tuesday. There was no communication there and it was my fault. I knew probably last Wednesday that we had this shoot and I have to be there so early. At that point, I should have messaged or called him and said, please, can you clear your diary for next Tuesday? I need you to take the kids to school. Thank you, love you, bye. Yeah. I didn't. On Monday night, when he got home at 9 o'clock from work, I said, right, you're taking the kids to school. I've got to leave at 7. He was like, well, I can't. Like, but you have to. Like, but I can't. I've got to be in town for 9. Like, okay, but you're going to have to. And that's when there was a row and the stress levels and there was no communication. So if you take anything from this whole doesband chat, I think as long as both parties that are trying to smash life and be the best version of yourself, I think with any relationship, when there's the lack of communication, that's when you have problems, right?
Absolutely. So we've said every week that we love a phrase, and I feel like
I love a phrase.
Now, again, we said it last week, now we're having all these conversations with people and we're thinking of topics for the podcast. We really hang on to what people say, and I feel like every day you almost get gems from people. So we were discussing what are those phrases, or is there a particular phrase that either of us have, and plus people we've asked this week, that has really changed your life? Is there a phrase, if someone said to you, what's your favourite phrase, what comes to mind? So this is something we both did separately.
And we wanted to surprise each other on the show and come up with our own phrases that have changed our lives. But while we were kind of going through the notes of the show this morning, we both, I don't know how it came about, but we sensed that perhaps we had the same phrase that we were going to share with you. So I asked Sarah, does it have 4 words to it? And she replied, yes. So then our pod producer, Jane, said, right, let's record you. And we actually wish we actually did that
Saved
live
it on the
moment
show.
here. But do you want
In
to share?
3,
1, 2, 3. This too shall pass. Interesting, because I feel like as a rule, that phrase is just so us. We're all about, it's just a phase, whether it's motherhood, business, friendships, whatever difficult times we're going through, we always say it's just a phase, it's just a phase. But I wouldn't say we've actually said that exact phrase to each other.
Well, it was funny because I was at my grandma's last night. We had family over from Israel, and I asked the group of us, there's about 10 of us, this conversation, and they said to me, what's your phrase? And I said, it's just a phase. But I realised that wasn't the actual phrase, although that's in my head. Yeah. The phrase was, this too shall pass. So it's funny that you say that, because we've never said it in that way, but we've always thought it, if that made sense.
We're just so in sync. But it's that phrase for me. When Sarah mentioned we should discuss phrases on today's episode, I was thinking, I love a phrase. Like, how am I going to pick just one? Yeah. And I like whatever.
You've got to think what goes into your head right now.
Yes, but I was thinking there's so many for different relevant kind of moments or issues. Like, even all the Michelle Obama ones, like everything that even all the phrases we've mentioned on the
for 8,000.
Exactly. But I just thought, what is that one phrase that really helps me often? And it is always, this too shall pass, because tomorrow is always a new day. We can always wake up tomorrow with a fresh start, a new beginning. Yeah. And I think that is just something we always need to just remember.
And I think for me, this phrase particularly, I'd say like the last 5 years of motherhood, and I've spoken openly that I've really struggled in the early days with babies and the lack of sleep, and they had reflux and all of that stuff. And the overriding thing that got me through those really dark days and nights was, it's just a phase, because I know they will eventually sleep through. They will eventually stop crying. And honestly, I used to say it to myself in my head over and over and over again, knowing, especially with the second, because it comes to an end from the first, that it will pass. And I just feel like it just makes you think everything's okay. But it was funny. So as I said, I was at my grandma's, and I asked the table, and my grandma, I'm sure your grandma is similar, is always full of, also from her mum, of really amazing phrases. So I said to her, what is your phrase? And I loved this. She said, always look for the good in people, because the bad you will always find. So I thought, that is just such a nice way to basically say, don't be negative. Yeah. Just always be positive. Don't look at the bad. It's so easy to just go low, as Michelle Obama said. It's so easy to go low, but go high. From Sophie, my best friend Sophie. You love Sophie as well.
I do.
She is always full of how much wisdom.
She is.
Her family motto, and I love this, a Winston Churchill quote, keep buggering on. Love that. Just in those moments where you feel like you've got nothing left in the tank, where you feel like, can't be asked to do this, I can't do today, I can't do yesterday, I can't do tonight, I can't do bedtime, keep buggering on.
Love that.
And we're going to end on that.
We're going to end on a high. But before we do, one last thing I want to mention.
Go on.
Sarah and I are feeling quite overwhelmed with the extra stuff at the moment, whether it's, in all kind of factors, but particularly nursery and school. So if anyone's listening to this and you can't keep up on the different colour uniform you've got to wear tomorrow, the school photos, getting the forms in on time, the extra homework.
Signing the form, posting the form.
It's all feeling quite overwhelming for us. So just in case anyone else is feeling the same, we just wanted to say we feel you, and we are definitely feeling it too. So that wraps up episode 12.
Yay!
Short and sweet again, but we love it.
And we will see you next week for episode 13. Thank you so much for listening. Please do like, subscribe, follow, give us a 5-star review. It would mean the world to us. And see you next week.
Bye.